Ninja and Flannel. Most suppressors today are still made the same way they were decades ago, with things like tubes, stacked baffles, welds, compromises, weakness incarnate. But there are some companies that are now building them differently, and that difference is what matters more than most people realize. And we're going to go over why the process matters, what it is, and why it is so much better than your standard cans. So today I'm going to do my best to briefly explain additive manufacturing in somewhat layman terms and kind of the ways that I understand them. I'm simply blue collar, and why it matters and why it makes such a great difference. Now there is something I want to make abundantly clear. These are three-dimensionally printed, but they're not printed off of a printer from like Temu. You get and set up in your garage and print little figurines and coasters. This is on a very high-end industrial grade printer, and this isn't a cheap knockoff way to make suppressors fast and easier. This is a better way to make better suppressors. Very important. Just want to kind of myth bust before the myth even starts. The samples we'll be using are from replicator suppressors. Met these guys at SHOT Show of 25, and I really learned a lot from them about this process and these cans in particular. And why I decided to go with these is because even in the world of additive manufactured suppressors and such, they still have an edge even in that world, which we'll get into a little bit later on. So you may be asking yourself, what exactly is additive manufacturing? Well, for a more common term, it would be called metal three-dimensional printing. The actual term would be industrial selective laser melting, which is very cool. Here's the short version. A high-powered laser melts metal powder layer by layer into a single solid structure with no seams, welds, or anything, making it one complete monolithic part. This means no baffle stack, no seams, no welds, and no traditional tube. So what you end up with is a suppressor that is essentially grown rather than put together on an assembly line. So why does this matter? Well, with traditional machining and lathes and such, there's certain things you simply cannot do. For example, you can make really complex gas paths built inside of this, curved asymmetrical gas chambers, and pressure venting structures that just simply can't be machined with traditional machining. Now this allows replicator suppressors to slow, redirect, and cool gases in a very efficient way, which directly affects sound suppression, back pressure especially, heat, and flash suppression. Now strength and durability is probably the biggest benefit of this new process. You're not going to get baffle separation, tube distortion over time, and any of the welds failing because there are no welds. Pretty big deal, and in the strength and durability, it's wild. For example, these are mostly rated for about 1800 degrees, which is probably the highest I've ever heard of. This is their Chode little shorty 30 cal can. I've seen one of these they had that was just screaming, glowing red hot. Just mag after mag, cooled down, no damage. Highly impressive. I'm pretty blown away by it, honestly. Now, Inconel is a good comparison for what this is. And Inconel is not extremely new now. It's been around long enough where most of us have seen it. These particular ones are kind of they're not Inconel at all, but I would compare them to Inconel and say they're kind of like Inconel on steroids, if that makes sense. So that really gives you an illustration of how tough they are. Another perk we briefly touched on was that being able to make all these different chambers and crazy shapes, you're able to make very, very low back pressure cans. Some of them are almost seemingly zero extra back pressure. I'm sure there's some, but not enough where I could even measure it or see a different ejection pattern or anything. So the back pressure, the recoil reduction, really nice. Now, somewhat of a con, but not a huge one, is that you're not going to get that crazy lightweight like you do with aluminum or titaniums especially. They do remain close to the same weight as a standard steel tube suppressor, so keep that in mind. Now this is not a huge pro because most companies do this now, but all these cans do seem to be hub compatible, which is really nice. What I do want to show you guys off camera so I don't get blocked on YouTube is I've switched finally from Chemo to the Breek Arms Breek Lock system, which is like a 3-lug system. I kind of would describe it as a modified rifle form of the old school tri-lug, and it is really, really nice. The actions to put it on, I'm not going to show you on the camera because of YouTube, but basically you put it on there, pull down a little bit, and just turn, and it stays. Same to take it off. Very nice, titanium ultra lightweight, and muzzle devices are about half the price of Chemo, so pretty sweet there. Real quickly here at the end, I kind of want to go over what this is, and this is actually the M10 Industries M10X-P. This is their pistol version. This is a very, very interesting firearm. It's basically like if you took like an AK and a CZ Bren or maybe a Sig Spear or a Galil and just kind of crossed them all, and this is what you came up with. Very, very interesting setup, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. It takes AK triggers, AK mags, and such. Adjustable piston, pretty cool. Video on this coming soon as well. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and farewell.